Welcome to another edition of I Take Your Point podcast. I am John Dunson, joined by, I don't know who I'm joined by today. I think she did wash her hair this week, so we can take advantage of learning more about that. But before we do that, again, thank you guys for joining another edition of I Take Your Point podcast. I'm John Dunson, and I am proud to be here with my partner in crime. You guys know her as Miss Lim. So a few weeks ago, I was having a conversation with someone about a job opportunity. And it's a good company, good role, good conversation. But at some point, they said something that caught my attention. And they said, can you send that to me in writing? Not because they didn't believe the person who said it, not because they thought someone was lying to them, but because somewhere along the way, we've learned that memory isn't enough anymore. Conversation isn't enough anymore. A handshake isn't enough anymore. Len's verbal commitment isn't enough anymore. We want an email, we want a screenshot, we want confirmation, we want the receipt. And the fascinating part about all of this is we don't even think about it anymore. It's become automatic. It's become normal. We want to understand first and then trust second. We want to verify it first and then trust second, not step back and actually think about what it is that this person may have said or this person may have done. And that's a remarkable shift. Trust but verify came from Ronald Reagan back in the early 80s when he was talking about the relationship the United States had with Russia. Reagan said, yeah, we want to do a partnership with them. We trust what they say, but we want to verify what it is that they're saying, which is obviously contradictory. Now, we trust doctors, we trust teachers, we trust news anchors, we trust companies, we trust institutions. We trust, in some cases, I don't know about Lynn, I know she has an issue with hers, but we trust our neighbors. But the verification existed, it lived in the background. It was something you used when something felt wrong. Today, verification has moved to the front of the process. It has become the starting point. And that's not because people suddenly became cynical. It's because the environment changed. We spent the last several years watching institutions get things wrong, watching leaders get caught up, watching stories change, and watching promises disappear. Trust is valuable, but trust without verification is risky. So we adapted. We started taking screenshots. We started researching employers before accepting offers. We started checking reviews before spending money. We started fact-checking stories before sharing them. We started investigating before investing. And slowly, almost without realizing it, we built an entirely new cultural operation system. One built around verification, one built around evidence, one built around the idea that belief should follow proof, not the other way around. And so today, we want to spend this episode talking about Miss Lynn's trust deficit and how it is that she is the poster woman for needing to show receipts, needing to be the Black Karen, needing to go and verify everything that someone says to her, because you know what? She is a cynical woman. And we want to make certain that we're providing her the information she needs in order for her to make an informed decision. But before we do that, Ms. Lynn, tell me about how it felt to wash your hair after a month.
Heavy sigh. John, move on.
Move on from the fact that you wash your hair?
John, I wash my hair constantly.
You do not. You literally do not. Anyway, so before we jump into the trust but verify aspect, let's talk about a couple of things, because I know you do this. You are the poster woman for needing to have receipts and needing to try to catch people, you'll call it, try to catch people in their little shenanigans or lies. So who hurt you? And when did you become such a broken vessel in terms of trust?
That's such a great question. I don't think anyone hurt me. I think it was just living. I do like to verify things, whether it's reviews before I purchase something, before I stay someplace. And I typically will do reviews. Like if I'm getting ready to go to a new city, and I will do reviews on the hotel or the surrounding areas. But then I realized that people also lie on the reviews. So now I've taken it a step further. So if I know someone in that area, drive by there and tell me what you think about it. Go walk in the lobby and tell me if you can get into the room and what does it look like. So yes, I just feel that people will take advantage of the different technologies that are out there, and they will put misinformation out because they do know that people now verify things. meetings, whether it's at a restaurant, a place to stay. And I do extend that to people. So if I'm meeting a new person, I love to go onto LinkedIn. I love to Google their name. I love to get additional information. I feel that it helps you, especially like if you have a new manager that's coming in. I like to look and see what have they done, because it kind of gives me an idea of how I want to approach and how I want to have that first meeting with them, what
Okay.
their leadership style is.
So that leads us to the first receipt in terms of culture, and that is the screenshot receipt. And this is something that I know that you do, and that's if there's a conversation or an exchange between a work colleague or something, you will screenshot it so that you will have it as your proof. If someone sends you a text, and let's say that text is something that you believe could be something of significance, you will keep that receipt or keep that screenshot just in case it becomes an HR issue or someone misremembers that they told you something. And so the first receipt is the screenshot insurance, and people becoming increasingly aware that you need to document that interaction before a problem occurs. An example of that would be job offers with verbal promises, contractor quotes, an electrician or someone come over and they tell you that it's a certain price and they text that to you. You want to be able to have that to say, no, you told me the price was going to be this. And so that's what it is that I'm willing to pay you. In your case, as you are entering the dating pool, dating conversations, when you're talking about a person telling you that they're going to be doing X, Y, and you're like, no, you told me you were going to call me at 7:55. It is now 7:56. Where were you for those 2 minutes that you could not have called? You could have called me to tell me that you weren't going to call me at 7:55. You could have called me at 7:53. That's what you would have said. So the question that I have for you is, when do we collectively stop treating documentation as something you gather after a problem and start treating it as something you gather before?
First off, you're going to stop treating these podcasts as our personal air my dirty laundry sessions. Number one. Number two. So for me, being a manager, a leader, I've always been taught to collect data. So whether I'm having a one-on-one conversation with an employee, I'll write things down, keep a little file. It can be informal. Sometimes I'll have to share it with HR, but I always tell them. But I always keep a collective record of everything. And, I love my little examples. I had a young lady on my team that just refused to come to work. She refused. And when she did come to work, she was just like, yeah, so I'm going to go ahead and treat this like a vacation. And I was like, so we're not going to be doing any of that. So we went through the entire process, the verbal, the formal, the PIP, the whole thing, very collaborative. Had everything in writing, made sure she signed everything. If you have a disagreement, go ahead and put it on here, but you're going to sign it. If you refuse to sign it, I'm going to go ahead and sign and have a witness in here. Great. So it came to the point where we needed to part ways. She needed to look for opportunities outside of that organization. Gave her the information. She was like, I'm suing you for discrimination. That's freaking fantastic. I love that so hard. So we had to go through the entire EEOC. We had our lawyer there. I gave the lawyer all of my paperwork. And so she said, why am I here? You've done everything. Like, there is no reason for me to be here. The EEOC person came on. I gave them all the paperwork, case dismissed. It was ridiculous. Like, you can't say that somebody's discriminated against you when you signed everything. So I always collect information, especially being a manager, being an employee. I also keep a record. I was just watching this movie the other day, Ladies First, and it was hilarious. So the receptionist or secretary assistant, whatever she was, had this record of things that Damon said if I get fired or whatever. It was a record of everything her boss did, and she's just collecting records. And I think it's important to be proactive as an employee, as an employer. In the event there does come that time where you had to have those difficult conversations or there's a separation. In my personal life, I also keep records because people do like to, what did you call it, John? Misremember? Sure. Those were quotes, whatever you want to call it. I will say that I am a data hoarder. I don't care for a bunch of junk in my house, but on my computer, on my phone, yes, I am a data hoarder. Okay. Because I like to say, really? Well, 1997, I have a collection of records where you said, brrr, and then I send it over to you. So there will be no misremembering over here.
So, yeah, I take your point on that. And you are a hoarder of receipts. I will give you that. The second receipt with respect to culture is the first reference check. We used to not have as much information as we currently do about companies. A company can look good on paper. The opportunity can look good on paper. And you're famous for doing this. You will go to Glassdoor and you will say, hey, that company got a X, Y, and this is what the employees had to say about the company. And so the trust factor with respect to the company became conditional from the standpoint that as a person who may be looking at that company, either to do business with them or to be employed by them, you go out and you do your due diligence to make certain that this is what I thought it was going to be. You represented yourself one way, but now I've seen this, and this, and bring that as a part of your conversation with a potential colleague or with someone that you're looking potentially to hire for a job. So the question I have for you, do you think that we've become more skeptical as people and consumers or potential hirers or colleagues? Have institutions become less trustworthy, or were they always not trustworthy? We just now have more information.
Chicken and egg. So which came first? Because they are tied together. There's obviously a correlation between both of those behaviors and the actions. The faith that we had in companies that we would retire, we would collect a pension, we did the right thing, and then they're going to take care of us in 25 years. That is literally no longer the case. Like, some of them steal your 401k. Like, you're putting in money, it was your money. Enron, you put in money.
Okay.
It's because he was looking at me like I was nuts. And so it can happen, right? And so we have to be mindful, because as I always talk about, this is our business. And so you have to make great decisions. I use Glassdoor to do an initial vetting, just like they would do to me. They would go out, and unfortunately, sometimes people will look at your social media post. I don't necessarily agree with all of that, but they will do that. And so I will go and use the technology that's available to me to vet the company. And I do it for a couple of different reasons. First off, I want to kind of understand the culture and what I'm getting into. It also helps me to frame the questions that I'm going to ask when it's my turn to ask the questions as I'm being interviewed. The same way that they do behavioral questions for me, because it's a relationship. It's not just them wanting to date me. I want to date and marry them too. So I need to make good relationship questions, right? But I also verify. So if I know somebody, using Glassdoor as my starting point, and then LinkedIn, if I know somebody that worked for the company or has worked for the company, just trying to get some information and marrying those pieces of data up so that I can make an informed decision. When I look at my list of things that I want in a corporation, if there are red flags, then I may not want to interview with them, or I may want to ask questions that kind of give me information about them. Just asking some behavioral questions back to them. What kind of environment, like if we had two competing projects, how would you want me to prioritize that? What are your expectations? What does success look like to you for me in 30, 60, 90 days? Kind of getting some idea of how they're thinking, what the environment's like, so I can also make an informed decision. I'm not a slave, and so I have agency and I can make decisions, but I'm using that data to make the right decision for me.
Yeah, I think that's important. I don't consider this is one of those receipts that I think has benefited everyone. It's benefited people more than it may have benefited corporations. At the same time, if you're a corporation who is doing the right thing and your employees love you, then they're going to champion that on social media. I'm long past the stage where I fall in love with a company. You know, it's a position, it's a role, it's a job. And, you know, we've both been with organizations where if it's time to make a decision, hey, you've been with this company for 15 years. Here's your gold pin. We're moving in another direction. And that company, unfortunately, may not love you the way that you're loving them. And so, unfortunately, you're seeing that now on social media with a lot of these layoffs, whether it's Salesforce, hell, LinkedIn even, had a layoff, I believe, last week. And so the joke was, how are you going to lay off the people who are helping the people who are getting the job? Where do you go when you want to? So I say all that to say it's corporations traditionally have hidden behind the fact that you can't get some information from. But now with individuals, whether it's whistleblowers or whether it's individuals airing the dirty laundry of management airing the dirty laundry of the corporation and the culture, it's allowed you to get that information to make an informed decision. You said something a minute ago that I want to bring your attention to, because I know you do this. And you say looked at social media or looking at social media to go and vet companies. But we also know that you're the Black Karen, and you use social media to do due diligence in terms of dating and identifying potential suitors. So the third receipt of relationship due diligence, where people are increasingly investigating potential partners before there's an emotional investment. And that could be going to their social media, looking at their LinkedIn, at their Facebook, at their TikTok or Instagram. It could be reverse imaging searches where you're saying, okay, what searches are out there with this person? You put in their name in Google and it pulls up the images of the person in Google. It's the mutual contact verification. You reaching out to, hey girl, this boy contacted me about X, Y, and Z. I know we are both friends with him. What can you tell me about why his last girlfriend dumped him? And she could say because he, wore socks to bed. So the question I have for you, with these smartphones, you have these location apps that can show you where an individual is, and a lot of players have been busted. I know you will do the public record to make sure that person is not some type of sexual deviant or has any type of outstanding warrants. So the question I have, at what point does healthy, in air quotes, healthy verification become surveillance?
The line is what the line is. The line is for the individual user. So I will say this. I've never heard of this reverse image search, and I just wrote that down. Thank you so much for that one. I will say that back in the day,
yesterday,
it was the network. And I would have, when I was in college, I would actually have people in the community that said, no, he's not for you. He is not for you. Like just random people come up to me and it's like, he's not for you. And these aren't people like, women that are trying to compete. These are like elders in the community that are like, no, he is not on your path. Move on. Or when I was in college, I went to college in Oklahoma. So I had obviously 1,000 cousins and they were all extremely protective. And they were like, absolutely not. Or yes, this one, yes. So that it was that. Now, because we're so scattered and remote and we do have access to things, I feel like it is irresponsible not to do some due diligence. So, I don't do online dating because I make horrible decisions face to face. I'm going to end up on Dateline. I don't know if I'm going to get Keith Morrison to cover me, and I'm concerned about that. So that's out. That's never going to happen. I can say that I do have a subscription to Verify, the little public search. I love it so much because I will look a Negro up in a minute.
What's the neighborhood one that you can get for your neighborhood?
Nextdoor? What is that? Who's posting on Nextdoor? Any rate, I will do that. And I don't have the bandwidth, the energy to drive by people's houses. Like I just don't want to. So if there's somebody parked in your driveway, good for you. I will look at the Verify, look at the public records. I also will look on your socials. But back in the day, we didn't have access to this. When I was with people, I would tell them, I'm going to look through your things, like your physical things. I wouldn't lie to them. I would tell them up front, I'm going to go look for it. And so if you're stupid enough to have shit in there, that's your business. I told you. And I wasn't kidding. I wasn't playing. They probably thought I was playing, but I wasn't. I'm going to go through your things. Now, where I think the line for me is the location sharing and the driving by someone's house. Because if you got to that point, there are structural issues. There's already a distrust. And I can't, at this big age or any age, okay, when I was younger, I totally did it. But at this big age, I'm not interested in uncovering your dirty deeds. Because if I think you have dirty deeds, you probably have dirty deeds. So I'm not interested in it.
What about the couples who share a social media account? I always thought that was strange.
Why?
Well, you know what? I can see it if you are not a social media user and it's just there for people to send like a John Lenn Facebook account, right?
Why would No, I'm not having... I don't know. I could be your Facebook friend, but why would I have the same account? No,
they have a shared Facebook account.
I don't want to share with you. I don't want to share my dessert with you. I don't want to share. Why do I need to share with you? I don't even have the same friends as you. No, get off.
Maybe it's a family thing. And
Maybe, I don't know. I don't know these people. So maybe. And it could be that one person is not as active or as well versed in social media, so they share. But two people that are active on social media, that are comfortable with social media, no. And that's a me thing, because I just don't believe in being that close to anybody. Like, I don't literally want to see you every day. Like, I don't need that type of intimacy with anybody.
That's a fair point. And so the things that happen culturally in our personal lives tend to bleed over into our political lives. You would have to have been in Iraq the last 6 months or so to not see, especially with the shit show in office, the stuff that's coming down the pike or the stuff that is happening. And so from a political standpoint, it's being used for good, actually. It's being used to hold the powerful accountable. A prime example of that would be the Bodycam Effect. And that's something like George Floyd, where we could physically be there and see what the police officers were doing in the time that they were doing it. And so it's been interesting to watch this administration, especially with ICE agents, not have their body cams on them at all times. And if they have the body cams on them, I believe automatically they record, especially if there's some type of interaction. That footage then becomes available to the public at large. But increasingly what we're seeing is folks saying, I need to see visual evidence that X, Y, and Z is happening because I don't believe you. I don't trust that the police are telling us the truth. I don't trust that the politicians are telling us the truth. I don't trust that what happened with Miss Lynn put on her pink pussy hat and went out and protested. I don't trust that the security camera caught Miss Lynn speeding in a 30 going 55 and she's going, hey, that wasn't me, and they're like, lady, we saw your foot out the window because we know you drive with your foot out the window. Or if you have the security camera footage of Miss Lynn stealing that hair and makeup from her brand new open Burlington, which is up the street from her now. And so she goes in there and she steals products. And so from that, even if she is doing her Black Karen and she is going to pull out her phone, if she gets pulled over by a police officer to say, ma'am, you were going too fast. You're the type of person that would pull out your camera and go, I'm going to record this because, hey, I want to know your name, your license number, your rank, how long you've been a police officer, and why you pulled me over, because you pulled me over because I'm a Black woman. I'm an attractive Black woman, and you probably haven't seen many in your life, and that is why you pulled me over. So you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to get in my car and I'm going to drive off because you have offended me. And that is something you would say. So the question that I have for you, Miss Black Karen, what does it say about society when people trust the cameras more than they trust the institutions?
Okay, so there's so much to unpack there. First off, I drive with my foot out the window because my hips hurt and I can't just be driving for long periods of time. Second, if somebody catches me stealing makeup from Burlington, I need to be arrested. Third, I say that Steve Jobs probably saved more Black lives than the police in some instances. The phone can be that digital DNA. And like I said last week, DNA don't lie. And so I can my senses more than I can trust what you're saying. So whether that is physical DNA, whether that is an undoctored video or audio, if it's available, I should be able to use that and make a decision, because unfortunately, people are self-serving. People misremember things, or they have, what do we call them? The alternative facts. And it's always going to be from their perspective. So there's, like you always like to tell me, there's two sides to every story, right? And so when I'm telling you a story, it's going to be from my perspective. Whether I'm trying to lie or deceive you or whatever, it's going to be from my perspective, the paradigms that I have. It's going to be introduced into the recount of that story. If I have evidence or if I have information that doesn't introduce any of those biases, then I can make an informed decision. So I prefer to look at that, to hear that, to examine it than rather just hear one person's account of what happened. And even the fluctuation in the variation of your voice as the way you're telling something can impact how someone's receiving it.
So, okay, from the standpoint of the Bodycam and Apple, what they did from that technology standpoint, I agree with you. When they introduced the iPhone, that was a game changer for a lot of people. It was a game changer from the standpoint that you are now able to not have to have that physical camera that you were walking around with to be able to capture moments. It allowed individuals to be able to capture a lot of moments in real time. And when you went from not only being able to take pictures, but then being able to video record, that was significant because you were able to record a lot of life-changing events, not only to be able to memorialize them for your own self, but to be able to, should something happen, especially with Black. Now, it's become almost a second habit that when you are a person of color and you get pulled over by the police, you hit record because you don't want there to be some type of miscommunication or misunderstanding in terms of what happened. And so from that standpoint, I think that yes, it is an opportunity for us to hold individuals to account and hold truth to power with respect to what it is that these institutions have, unfortunately, for far too long been able to lie and get away with. Whether you're talking about the stuff that happened with January 6th or the stuff that has happened with George Floyd or the stuff that has happened with any number of events we've seen at either rallies or with individuals saying something and then 5 minutes later saying, I never said that. Dude, we have you on camera saying it. You said it. So to that end, one of the wonderful things that I think that Twitter has been very good at, Facebook to a certain degree, but it's allowed individuals to check people in real time. And so the second receipt is the community as knows culture. Meaning that Facebook last year or the year before last went away from hiring people to go out and literally fact check what was being written or posted on Facebook. And they've left it up to the community to go in and self-police and fact checking what it is that Lynn is posting on Twitter, going in and adding, this never happened, or it didn't happen this way, or refuting what happened and adding additional notes or asking someone to clarify what happened. The community in a lot of ways has become the de facto fact checkers of social media, and everything is being crowdsourced. Now, that's a good thing and a bad thing from the standpoint that, yes, we do have crowdsourcing going on, but at the same time, we also have a lot of Miss Lens out there that think they know everything, and they're the subject matter experts on everything, and they offer their opinion on everything. So the question I have is, crowdsourced verification making us more informed or just creating more people like you who think that they're experts on everything?
I think it's the way that you use it, right? And I think that crowdsourcing can be very helpful to inform people that may not have the bandwidth, the resources, whatever, to understand what's going on. So you can use crowdsourcing to amplify a message. Then the onus is on the receiver. Just because somebody told you something doesn't mean that it's the truth. You still have work to do. You still have to verify. And I think that you can start suffering from groupthink if you just listen to the same people over and over. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's right. And you never challenge anything, any assumptions, any ideas by going to an alternative source. Even if you feel like, if I go to this alternative source, it's going to corrupt me and now I'm going to become a whatever. It's not. You can still filter things. I think it's important to take information in from various sources and then make informed decision on whatever that particular topic is.
Okay, but one of the things I think we have to be careful of is groupthink, especially in social media. And you and I have talked about this. You can curate your social media feed and curate your friend group to all you're hearing is, or all you seeing is people that think like you, feel the same way you do about certain things. And so you're not allowing yourself to get in those additional viewpoints. And I think that's the good thing and the bad thing about social media. I think we need to make certain that everyone that's in our friend circle does not think alike. I think it's okay not to have toxic people in your circle group, but I think we've also pushed that in a lot of ways too far to the left. And I'm very specific when I say that because you truly only see that with progressives. You see that more with progressives than you see it with any other political leaning group. You don't see that with liberals, and liberals are different from progressives. I'm a liberal. And liberals would be a little left of center. Barack Obama, Kamala Harris, Joe Biden, Hillary Clinton, left of center. Progressives, Bernie Sanders, AOC, individuals who are more on the socialist end of the spectrum than anything. You see a lot more of that with respect to them having very little tolerance for anyone who doesn't agree with them. I would go as far as to say you see more with progressives on that aspect than you do with the far right.
And why is that?
The horseshoe theory. And that means that the further left you go and the further right you go, they almost touch. There's not a huge amount of daylight between progressives and the far right.
But your stance was that you see it more from the far left than you do the far right. And help me to understand. Because let me tell you why. Because some of the...
How you going to tell me why? You asked my
question. No, let me tell you why I'm asking. But I do like that I'm going to tell you what to say also. The reason why I'm saying that is because some of the benefits, and I can see that for both the far left and the far right, is that it does encourage cooperation. So there's a collective action. So if we want to do something, if we have a lot of groupthink or whatever, then it's easy to make a decision and to have action. And then there's that social cohesion. And I see that that's a benefit for both of those groups. And we know the potential bad things about it, that it does create false consensus, that it reduces the critical thinking. But those groups are not interested primarily in all of that. They don't care about the critical thinking, because if you start to critical thinking, then you start asking questions and then there's dissension. And I would say both of those groups are not interested in those activities. They're more about social cohesion and making quick decisions for action, whatever that action looks like. So help me to understand why you think it's more prevalent on the left than it is on the right.
I think the left has a savior complex in a lot of ways that the right doesn't, meaning that the left tends to think that they know what's good for the masses more than one would say that the far right tends to think that they know. I think that the far left believes that we need to do everything for the social good. And I'm going to make decisions for you that are, I believe, in your best interest over what you can do with respect to making decisions in your best interest. Maybe I'm being a little hyperbolic here when I say that, but it's been my experience that those on the far left, they do not have the violent tendencies of those on the far right. But as far as thinking that they know better about what's best for you, they are much more prone to think that and act that way.
That's interesting. I wonder if it's because of the issues that they're championing. Because I could say the same thing about the far right, but it's more about groups of people and the way those groups of people show up in this world. So when you think about law and order and the way that law and order needs to be enacted in certain communities. And so it's the same thing that I'm telling you how you should act, how families should be, that a wife should stay at home and raise my children and not think or whatever. So they're still doing that, but it's more on a community level as opposed to a global level. But I still see the same thing. It's just curious to me that you don't see that same thing on the right. The emphasis on the tradition, the family, the social stability. Like, not everybody wants to have a family the way you think I should have a family. And it's just, I don't know, I'm fascinated to think or to hear you say that you think it's tougher on the left than it is on the right, because I think it's the same, it's just different.
Yeah, I can see your point. Maybe it's because the left pisses me off more than the far right.
Or could it be that you align more with some of the traditional values of the right, so it's not as egregious as the left, where the left is like, do whatever you want to do, be who you want to be, marry a tomato if you feel like it. Nobody said that. And the right is more traditional, more, these are the roles for the family, these are the roles for society. And you are a rule follower, like you love rules, and you also love tradition. So I wonder if it just aligns more with your personality.
No, I'm not a big Bernie Sanders. I'm not a big Bernie Sanders.
No, you're not a very big anything that falls outside of what Johnny thinks. Like you.
So let me say this. The fact that I've said his name 3 times so far on this podcast, I usually don't even say his name. I usually call him he who shall not be named. And so
wow, that is so shocking.
I'm a huge AOC fan. And the reason is, I think she has the political chops if she modulates a little bit and if she learns. And so Miss Nancy obviously had to check her a couple times. And one of the things that I said was, when she first got into Congress, I said, in her first year, she's young, she is clearly a talent in terms of politics. I'd like to see what she becomes after serving several cycles in Congress. And so when I said that to individuals who know me, they were like, no, we want her to be a female Bernie. And I was like, yeah, first of all, he's in Vermont. He's 90,000 years old. I get that he has some good policies, but I also understand that he has some race issues. And some of the things that he says and some of the things that he does don't strike me as an individual who is cognizant of the blind spots that he has with respect to race. And so
thank you for saying that, John, because I was really putting some negativity on you. And so it's very helpful for you to name exactly what it was, because the negative things that I was putting on you is that you like for people to fit into categories and boxes that you define and you create. And this world is not for someone else to label and to tell someone else how to show up in this world. You and I fundamentally differ on that. I don't believe in these traditional roles, these traditional whatever, because I just feel like it creates angst and unnecessary stress when I'm trying to show up and be a version of what you want me to be instead of who I am. You and I are always going to disagree on that. Thank you for saying that it was the race issue.
Yeah, it was the race issue. And if we're talking about an individual and an individual's age, and we're talking about people passing the baton, Bernie has had 20 years to pass the baton to someone younger, someone with his ideologies in the state of Vermont. Okay? I'm glad that he has groomed in some way, and I don't know if that's the right term to use, back to an older man and a younger woman.
Stop.
Groomed AOC to be the heir apparent to him. And there is now speculation that she may be running in 2028. I don't think so. I think she has her sights on knocking off, and you'll love this, a guy that I do not like at all, and that is Chuck Schumer. And so I'm a moderate. Schumer is a moderate, but I do not like Schumer. I would be more than happy if AOC ran against Schumer and knocked him out of the Senate. I would be completely happy with that. That said, let's pivot to receipt number 3, and that is verifying the verifier. And one of the things that I think we have to be careful of, especially in the political arena, we will see someone post something and we want to know what the receipts are. Who posted it? We'll see a poll. Who paid for the poll? We will see something with respect to a piece of data that we don't like, and we want to know who's behind it, who sponsored it. Because if it's someone that I don't like, then it's not a fair poll. It's like if we see a commercial about milk and how milk is bad for you. Well, that clearly was done by a lobbyist group that's associated with some company that doesn't like the dairy farmers. So with that, the question, have we become better at evaluating information, or have we become better at finding reasons to dismiss information we don't like?
No, I think that we've just become better. We've become better users of data. And so in receipt 2, we talked about groupthink. Verifying information is one way to make sure that you're not part of groupthink. So I do verify the reviewer. And if it's someone that reviewed something, I will go and look at their profile. I'm like, no. There's this whole thing about J-Lo, and J-Lo takes very good care of herself. And so she can wear some different type of clothing that I'm all for. But there are a lot of people on social media, she's a mother, she's over 50, blah, 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 blah. My son and I were looking at something, and he said, click on their profile. And I said, why? And he goes, click on their profile. And so he goes, haven't you noticed that there's a theme that the women that could never pull anything off like that are always the ones that are throwing the shade at somebody? And so I'm like, when you have opportunities for improvement and you are saying negative things about other people, I don't know about the validity of your statement, because I don't know if I really believe that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I can post something about a poll. And let's say that poll is that Keisha Lance Bottoms is going to defeat whomever is Republican selection for governor. And individuals will want to know, well, who commissioned that poll? What was the ideology of the individuals who were polled? Did they have more Dems being polled than Republicans? What day of the week was it polled on? Was it a Democrat or a Republican pollster? All of that information will help them determine whether or not they believe the poll. We as a people have become such a cynical society that we don't want to believe certain things if it doesn't align with our viewpoint. You could see something on Fox and you could see something on MS Now. And let's say if MS Now put out a poll that had the shit show's approval rating at 26%. Right? Len would go, okay, that's about right. Because, you know, it's 26% and I hate him and people that I know hate him. Fox can put out a poll that says his approval rating is 31. You're going to go, well, you know, that's Fox because it's Fox and they're just trying to make him look better. Not understanding that the Fox pollsters are some of the best.
I'm so confused over this. So one of my favorite classes in undergraduate was statistics. Believe it or not, it was statistics. The core fundamental things that you learn in statistics is sampling and study design. And so looking at the random sampling, looking to see if there's bias, looking to see what the demographics are, that's part of just normal statistics. And so just because it's outside of a undergraduate course and now more people are using that methodology to evaluate things that are sent to them, why is that a bad thing?
It's not a bad thing if you're going in it with eyes wide open. But if you're going in it and you're going, okay, I'm not going to believe it because Lynn did it, then that's not the...
Okay, if it's because of the poll, the person that posted the poll, okay. But I would always want to know, who did you poll? What was the sample size? What do they look like? Just kidding. I want to know these things because I know that can introduce bias and I need to be able to filter that out as I'm using the data. That's just a basic thing in statistics. And so just because the lay person is using it, I think that's a great thing. Instead of just blindly accepting stuff and not understanding who was sampled, what the sample size was. Like, oh, okay, you know, on this podcast, I just randomly say stuff, just make up stuff.
Well, yeah.
People should be verifying that.
Yeah, but you make up stuff, though. And so that leads us to this. Now that we've thought about the fact that individuals are constantly auditing everything, that auditing can wear us down. The truth is that the media has, in a lot of ways, been responsible for what it is and how it is that we're receiving the information because we don't trust them. And so from some standpoint, we become mini investigators. And so we investigate everything that is given to us. So the question, because I know you are a huge TikTok person and IG person, and audiences increasingly participate in investigations using social media. And in some ways, that social media investigation has become the entertainment. It is, hey, J-Lo wore this outfit and she's wearing these booty shorts and she's damn near 60 years old. And you're going, well, J-Lo is not the only one who's wearing this and and so it becomes like a game where individuals try to find J-Lo in her booty shorts dressing like she's 60 years old. So she, like, again, I say whether it's that, whether it's the other celebrity scandals, whether it's the missing persons, whether it's the viral incident. I mean, hell, we all saw what happened with respect to the Guthrie lady and her being missing. That poor lady is still missing and it's been damn near a year. So I think we can call it what it is with respect to that. So this is the question that I have for you. Why do you think people increasingly use these stories as consumption vehicles for our social media feeds? Why does Len worry about J-Lo's booty shorts more than she would normally worry about who's wearing booty shorts? But because they're J-Lo's booty shorts and she's wearing them, she can put it on social media and that can go viral.
Okay. I am having a hard time with this because I would never do that. I am not a fan of TikTok or Instagram.
Yeah, you are. We'll step back. We'll take you out of the equation. Do you believe that people are increasingly using stuff like J-Lo's booty shorts to help drive their TikTok views as opposed to talking about real shit?
Well, because people have an appetite for that. And so if they are, like you say, the look at me culture or whatever you call them, that, and you want to get visibility, you're going to talk about things that resonate with the audience. And so for TikTok, that's a short form, like 30 seconds or so. And if you can grab the audience's attention by saying something controversial or posting something controversial so people can click on it, of course you're going to do that. I think it's more about that. One of the things that you talked about that I thought was interesting was the missing persons. So we are obsessed, collectively, I am obsessed with true crime. And there are these true crime junkies out there that have actually made some differences, positive differences in cold cases. Some of them not so much. But in cold cases, having more people that have different types of resources, time, whatever, to go out and use social media to get information has actually been proven to be very helpful. But I do think that for celebrity things or just putting shock stuff out, it's just really to get that algorithm so that they can get the eyes on their TikTok page or whatever it is.
Okay. So that leads us to individuals becoming investigative reporters or the documentary stuff. We talked about Nancy Guthrie. Obviously, in the early 90s, around this time of the year, we had the OJ shit show happen. The reason I know this is because I was living in Maryland at the time and I'd fallen asleep on this beautiful plush black sofa that I had.
They just say beautiful plush black woman.
The television was on in the background and I woke up and it was the middle of the playoffs, the basketball playoffs. And I just saw this white Bronco driving down the 405. And it was OJ and Al Collins. And I know it was the first week of June that happened. And so when I was in LA a couple of weeks ago, I did what most people that are visiting LA that are of that generation wanted to do. You wanted to go by the place.
Literally, no one does that. Like no one does that.
So I went by the place where Nicole Brown Simpson and
no one. That's only people from the South that are like, let me go see what real people look like. Yeah.
But here's the thing. If you go to the place that she lived, it is no longer the address. They changed the address because you had so many people like me decide that they wanted to drive by.
Hicks. Like nobody does that.
Well, there's obviously a lot of people doing it because they had to choose.
No, there's not a lot of people doing it. Only people from wherever you're from in Georgia that don't have any social anything
Anyway,
that would go to California to go to Nicole Brown Simpson's resting place. Like what?
I did not go to California to do that.
Well, I know, but you were there. There's so many different things that you can do in Santa Monica. But you decided you wanted to go to Brentwood and look at that. That's just there's some.
You know what? I also wanted to go where the Charles Manson murders were happening, but I didn't,
Dude, you need to go to California more often because if those are your highlights, wow.
No, they were highlights. I'm just telling you what I was doing with respect to the documentary culture that we find ourselves in.
You are a sad individual.
We do this podcast, and one of the most successful areas of podcasts would be these documentaries and these murder mysteries that are told on these podcasts. And so whether it's true crime in this particular case, or whether it's corporate scandals with respect to Enron, or if it's the steroid issues with respect to sports, or the Michael Jackson documentary that Netflix just put out. We are now where modern documentaries are increasingly put out to get these audiences to try to uncover either a system or uncover things that they may not have known before. So the question I have for you is this. Do you think that documentaries teach us to think critically?
More better.
Yes. Do you think?
Yes, Johnny. I think it teaches us to speak more better English.
Do you think documentaries teach us to think critically, or do they teach people to assume that there's always some type of conspiracy that's underlying the foundation?
But there is a conspiracy. There's usually a conspiracy. In the past, we just didn't have access to uncovering unless you got an encyclopedia from the 1950s. Like, you just didn't have access to it. I think all of these things were always going on. Now we have technology that allows us to do real-time investigation. We're curious people because all of that stuff was either gatekept by the media or by some institution, and now we have access to it so that we can make our own informed decisions real time. And I think that's exciting to people. It's liberating to a lot of people, and it allows us to have agency in our own lives.
I think that we think about how it is and why it is we consume so much of this stuff. As we want to believe, or we can say no matter how sucky our lives are, at least we weren't OJ. Or we didn't.
No, I don't think a lot of people are comparing themselves like that. Like, they just don't. I don't know how you live, where you always are looking to compare yourself. At least I'm not this. But there's so much stuff going on outside of this world that most people aren't trying to introduce more trauma into their little world. So they're not trying to compare. They're not trying to do anything. They're just trying to get by the lives. Like, for me, I'm not looking to compare myself, or at least I'm not this, or watching reality TV. Oh, no, there's enough where I don't need to invite additional trauma and drama into my world.
I'll walk back what I just said. Thank you for that. And that will probably be one of the only times in this year that I will concede that you have a valid point there. So that leads us to the final receipt for edutainment. You are a huge Marvel fan, right?
Did you say waffle?
Marvel. I know you like waffles.
Oh, yeah. I was like, I do love waffles.
Marvel.
Yes, I'm a huge Marvel fan. Yes.
So what are Marvel theory communities?
What are what?
Marvel theory communities.
You know what? I don't really participate in those because I have my brother and my son. And I just will ask them a question. That's why the little one hates to go to the movie theater with me. Now, what happened? How does this tie to this one? Who's this person? He's like, shut it.
So the theory communities are people that have theories on why it is that the Marvel character is doing what they're doing, I'm assuming?
Yes.
Okay.
We have a book. I don't care if you think I'm a nerd, because I kind of am. We have a Marvel book, and so sometimes I will go back and I will look at the correlation or the tie-ins between the two characters and say, oh, okay, they were in this, and this is the rival. But I do ask the little one and my brother all the time, like, okay, so why does Spider-Man and the Punisher not like each other? Like, what is it? And it's because that crossover thing, and they'll explain it to me. But I believe that, of course, there would be theory communities because it's a huge universe. It's a huge community, and it's fun.
Yeah, when you think about those communities, I think COVID in a lot of ways was very good for stuff like this because we came together as a collective to either watch certain things or have certain experiences.
We were doing that way before COVID, just so you know.
Well, yeah, you
just weren't invited to the party.
You had Scandal Thursday night, and I will give Shonda Rhimes credit for establishing that with Scandal, because before her, there wasn't a lot of people doing what she did on Thursday night with that lineup with Scandal, Grey's Anatomy, and How to Get Away with Murder.
I'm trying to think. So my best friend and I, she lived in DC at the time, and I was here in Texas. So that was back when I was drinking the wine, and we would get our wine and our popcorn, and we would watch Scandal together. Either one of us would record it, and so we could watch it together. But I'm trying to think. I'm pretty sure we did that with other things as well. Oh, The Walking Dead. Like, we loved The Walking Dead.
Isn't that the guy from Grey's Anatomy?
I don't know. I didn't watch Grey's Anatomy, but The Walking Dead.
No. Grey's Anatomy, the guy that had the stick.
Okay, again, I didn't watch Grey's Anatomy, so you can sit here for the rest of this podcast talking about them. I'm never going to help you. I will, and I can't remember if Walking Dead came before. I think it was after. I don't remember. But we would watch that together. We watched several shows together where one of us would record it and then watch it together. I remember The Walking Dead. There was one season, I can't remember which season it was. I actually flew to DC so that we could watch the opening together. It wasn't to go to OJ Simpson's, whatever. I flew there so that we could go to Wegmans, get our stuff, and watch the season opening together.
Okay, I don't believe you. I believe.
Well, I don't know. She can comment and she'll call you and tell you you're wrong, as per usual.
Actually, I think she agrees with me more than she agrees with you, but that's okay.
I'm sorry.
Let me be clear. I'm pretty sure that she has agreed with me way more then she has agreed with you.
Bestie, please send in the comments because this don't make no damn sense.
Anyway, so with that, Miss Lynn, what do you have planned for this week?
Not a lot. I'm rewatching, speaking of Marvel, I'm rewatching Luke Cage, and so I will finish that up. I'm actually having a pretty chill week. I cleaned ceiling fans and baseboards yesterday, and so I'm just, chilled out.
Okay, good.
What about you?
I have nothing untapped to do this week.
Isn't that a lovely thing when you're like, nothing? I love it when you come home and they're like, what happened today? Nothing. Absolutely nothing.
But I do need to, there are a couple shows that I probably need to watch or start watching. I did watch, you'll love this. I did watch Man on Fire.
I didn't finish it, yeah.
I thought it was very good. And the reason I watched it is because I watched the podcast that had the main character on it. And I said, okay, I'm gonna do this. So the last question I have for you before we wrap up is, what's something that you now verify that your parents would have accepted at face value?
Anything. They believed everything.
And you believe nothing.
And because, even now they'll say, my God, whatever. And I said, well, what did the reviews say? My mother. She's like, I didn't look at the reviews. Well, how much was it? I don't know. I'm like, what? Did you actually look around to see if you could get it? No, I wanted it, and so I got it. Okay.
Wow. So anyway, on that end, tell your mom that she is a great American.
She's a what?
Great American.
A great American?
Yes, that's Texas George W. Bush. George Herbert Walker Bush.
You mean?
Yes. So what's the point? The point is that verification didn't appear because people suddenly became cynical. It appeared because trust became expensive. For most of human history, trust was a shortcut. You trusted the institution, you trusted the expert, you trusted the company, you trusted the church, you trusted the teacher, you trusted the process. Not because those institutions were perfect, but because society couldn't function if every decision required an investigation. Trust was efficient, trust reduced friction, trust allowed people to move through the world without auditing every interaction. But that's not where the world is any longer. We no longer live there. Over the last several years, we've watched institutions make mistakes, hide mistakes, explain mistakes, and sometimes deny that the damn mistakes actually occurred until evidence forced them to think and confront the fact that we knew. And every one of those moments taught the same lesson. Don't just trust, verify. So people adapted. They started researching before buying. They started checking before believing. They started documenting before agreeing, and they started investigating before committing. And if we're honest, a lot of those adaptations make perfect sense. Verification protects people. Verification exposes fraud. It uncovers bad actors, and it helps people make better decisions. That's the upside. But every adaptation comes with a cost. And that's the part we don't talk about enough. Because trust is more than a feeling, it's an infrastructure. It allows strangers to cooperate, it allows institutions to function, it allows relationships to form, and it allows communities to exist without requiring evidence for every interaction. And when trust declines, verification has to pick up the workload. The problem is verification is expensive. It requires time, energy, attention, and constant vigilance. Trust allows society to move. Verification relies and requires society to stop and inspect. And eventually you reach a point where people aren't just verifying claims, they're verifying everything. Their employee, the doctor, the media outlet, the employee, the contractor, the school, the influencer, politician, friend, partner, the institution. Everybody is checking for everybody. And at some point, people get tired. At some point, people stop investigating, and at some point, people stop verifying. And when that happens, they don't automatically return to institutions. They often hand their trust to whomever feels most believable. And that's where things get dangerous. And that's where we find ourselves today. Because a society that trusts too easily is vulnerable. But a society that trusts nothing is exhausted. And exhausted people often are willing to believe almost anything that promises certainty. See, that's where this conversation matters. Verification culture isn't the destination, it's the response. It's what people built after trust broke. The bigger question is whether it's sustainable. People still want trust. People still need it. People still search for it every day. The question is whether we built enough resources and reasons to earn it again. And that's where we'll pick up the next time. Because once people start demanding proof, institutions didn't simply accept that reality. They responded. And in many ways, that response made the trust recession even worse. While you're out and about this week, make the time to do something nice for yourself. And while you're at it, take the time to do something nice for someone else. Until next time, we'll talk to you.
And that's a wrap.
Thank you for listening and spending your time with us on I Take Your Point. For more unfiltered conversations like this, click the link in the description. Huge thank you to our production team. We couldn't do this without you. Quick disclaimer, the views shared are those of the host and guest and are for informational purposes only, not professional advice. Keep building your own table, take care, and be well. And that's a wrap. Thank you for listening and spending your time with us on I Take Your Point. For more unfiltered conversations like this, click the link in the description. Huge thank you to our production team. We couldn't do this without you. Quick disclaimer, the views shared are those of the host and guest and are for informational purposes only, not professional advice. Keep building your own table, take care, and be well.